All right, and we can go ahead and get started. So if you don't want to be visible on the recording, just turn your video off, but I think it usually records just kind of the speaker view anyway. But welcome everyone to our closing Zoom session of SGM 101. Congratulations. I know people are at various stages of completion, but nonetheless, thank you for being here and for bearing with us through, all the technical issues and kind of scheduling stuff. It's been a learning experience, but we're really glad that y'all have joined us for it. So we want to use this closing time together to talk about the different regions where school site placements are going to be. And we have a few of the regional managers here, and then some submissions from ones who couldn't be here, just kind of like help wanted ads of, what's going on in each of the regions, what kind of schools are in need of mentors right now. So just so you can get kind of a lay of the land. And then we have the questions that some folks submitted through Brightspace, also a few that we didn't get to answering during the panel that we'll talk about. And then the last 10 minutes is going to be an important 10 minutes. And we are going to be completing, just kind of while we're on together, a Google form starting to move towards placing you all in sites. So there's plenty of opportunity in that for you to kind of say if there's, a school that, your grandkid goes to and you want to work at, or if you've already talked to a regional manager and have a school, great. We're just going to have everyone do this form. And then those folks who, aren't set up with a school yet, which is probably most of you, will kind of get some information to help make those connections. So that's the plan for tonight. And I think everybody knows this by now, but just make sure that you're staying muted. You all should have been muted upon entry, unless you have something to say. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat, anything like that. And yeah, we'll try to end around 8 o'clock. We may go a few minutes over, especially making sure we get those surveys in. And yeah, anything else to add, Karen?
Not as any other information. Just again, I'm Karen Wright. I am the state garden, or the I can't even think. I am the school garden coordinator, council coordinator. I'm your council member as well. So I represent our school gardens on the URI Master Gardener Council, as well as helping to coordinate all of our school gardens within the state. So that's kind of what I do. I've been giving you feedback from your wonderful learning scenarios. And I'll take this second to thank everybody for doing that. I'm really impressed, guys, with your thoughtfulness in those scenarios. I'm really excited that you've joined our program, or at least are interested in thinking about doing so, because your skill set is outstanding. So either we did a pretty decent job of putting this together, or I should say Francesca did, or y'all were just way on the ball when you got to us. Either way, thrilled to have you all join the program. And after that, I think we can roll into our regionals and kind of talk about how that's structured.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're going to start by hearing from each region. I think, Karen, do you want to start with doing Providence yourself, or do you want to have Wendy or Joan get us started?
I don't have a list of schools from, did she send one to you?
No, I was wondering if off the top of your head you knew of anything we can share, or if that's kind of a question mark.
I don't, but we do want to review how we do the organization within the School Garden Mentors. So what we have is we're divided into regions. Our program is, and it follows the regions that we have for URI Master Gardeners. So after going through core training, I know you're probably fairly familiarized with the regions, the North, South, Central, and East. And with School Gardens, we add a fifth region to that because we break out Providence. And it's basically Providence Public Schools that are its own region. And the obvious necessity for that is just the concentration of schools that are in that region or in that area, and creates enough interest and work for it to have its own manager. So that's how we kind of do that. Each region is set up with its own regional manager, and I would like to introduce folks as I have them here. I was looking to see who might have joined, but our Northern region has two co-leaders, Linda Carlo and Terry Melvin. Our Providence region has one regional manager, and that is Susan Gorlick. Our Central region has one primary regional manager, and that is Marcia Izzy. We've got Kim Pond standing in. She is our absolute right-hand gal over in Central region. She's got a lot of knowledge, so she can talk to us about those schools there, I think. And Kim, if you don't want to, just give me this sign. And I think who else? Southern region. And we have Joan Sarah. She's our regional manager for the Southern region. And she's here with us tonight. And then we have the Eastern region. The Eastern region, based on the way it's laid out and the bridges you have to cross, actually has three regional managers. We're very lucky. We have Wendy Brennan, who primarily works with the Warren and Bristol Barrington kind of area. We've got Jackie, who does the primarily Barrington group. And then we have Sheila Sullivan, who does the rest of us. So Newport County, which is mostly the island, Aquidneck Island, Newport, Middletown, Portsmouth, and Tiverton. So that's kind of how we're structured. Providence Public Schools always has a need for school garden mentors. So within the Providence Public Schools, most of our school garden mentors take on 1, 2, 3 schools. Susan herself, as the regional manager, I know kind of shepherds 3 to 5 schools regularly. So having extra school garden mentors, or if you would like to work in Providence Public Schools, then we have always plenty of openings, and Susan would be the person to contact for that. One additional thing that Susan does that is really wonderful for the city of Portsmouth is that she holds a monthly meeting, and they're just starting back up again this month, actually, called Hope Gardeners. And she invites not just school garden mentors, but all school garden people or school folks who are nonprofits who might be interested just in serving the schools and serving not just with gardens, but with environmental and other concerns, green concerns, recycling, any of those sorts. So she gets a really great group together. So that's a nice monthly meeting to attend. And if you are interested, you can always email Susan, and she will take on any of us from any of our regions. If we want to come to her meetings, she will let you come. So it is very much an open forum, so that if you want to talk to other folks, maybe outside of your region in schools and school gardens and related to those sorts of things, that's a really good resource. So that's Providence. After that, what do we have? Central. Kim, do you feel decent doing Central region needs? Are you close to?
I haven't got an update from Marcia. I can say that, like Susan, we're planning to do the monthly meetings again. Sometimes I help with activities and stuff for that. So we are planning to get going again in October. But if you have an update as far as what schools need, I know she'd probably have the updated list for that.
Yeah, we're still working on getting all the schools updated. So we're in a little bit of a flux here. Plus, this is the intake time. So when we talked about when you start and how a school gets on board, and we do these intake visits and do the reports and bring them on, assign a new school garden mentor. Well, with COVID, that's normally done this time of year, but usually our training is done in January. So we know who the new schools are, and we have a new group of folks who are ready to start in the spring. So a little bit of a disconnect. So there will be more opportunities because we have schools applying literally as we speak right now. So any schools you can think of, actually, I think you're fairly well staffed in Central, but we always like to have an extra or a second school.
We're looking to get like 2 deep leadership or support, have somebody supporting each one. I know that was one of the goals moving
Yeah.
forward. And there is a variety of schools. We have elementary, we have some other ones that have greenhouses, some have like pollinator gardens, some do more vegetables. So depending on what people are looking at, I know there's a variety of opportunities available. And just to let you know, even though you might be in a region for being a master gardener, when it comes to the school garden mentors, you don't have to stay in your region. Some maybe work close to a school, so they are in another region, even though for the other master gardeners, they might be in, say Southern, but they work in Providence, so they might help with a Providence school. So you can float back and forth. Don't have to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not tied to a region. You can work wherever, you can find a school if it meets your needs, wherever you want it to be in the school. Kim actually very generously did 2 different schools in 2 different regions. So we can do it all. Awesome.
SGMs can do anything.
Anything. That's right. If that's good, we can maybe start with next
you, Kim.
with Wendy. Thank you, Kim.
Let me be careful that I remove your spotlight and not remove you from the meeting. Remove spotlight. Okay. And then let me find Wendy.
Spotlight Wendy. And we'll do it Eastern.
Wendy, can you start talking? It might help me find you. Is Wendy still here?
Oh, no.
I don't know if Wendy's still
That's why
here.
I was just looking for her name. I don't see her. Okay. Oh, well. Joan, we could do Southern.
Right. Yeah, start with Joan and then work our way back. Joan, same ask. Can you start talking, please? Oh, wait, there you are. I see you.
Sorry, I disappeared last time, so I'm here.
Yeah, we were jealous because you were in the woods.
Yeah.
And Joan's going back again to the woods. Joan lives in the woods.
So in the southern region, we have 16 participating schools currently. I don't know if there's any new schools coming on. I haven't heard, but we cover Richmond, Peacedale, South Kingston, Narragansett, Hopkinton, Wakefield, Kingston, Westerly, and Pawcatuck, Connecticut. So of those 16 schools, they represent preschool through high school. We currently have 25 school garden mentors placed at those schools. And 6 of our schools have indicated an interest in new interns rather. So Bradley South County, which is in sort of the Wakefield area, that's a K-12. Charahoe Middle School, there's just one person there currently. Hope Valley Elementary. Monsignor Clock, it represents a K-8 school. South Kingston High School and Westerly High School. I don't know if anyone, I know there's a few folks from Westerly that are interested and have reached out to me. And I think, someone also from the Connecticut area has reached out already that are in the class of 2021. So we'll continue to work together and we'll move on from there. And I think it's going to be a great season. I know everything is in sort of varying stages of development. Some are just, working on their own. Others are actively engaged with students, and some are still finding their way during these times. So I think it's going to be a great spring. Fall has started out with really great response. So I'm looking forward to a good spring also.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And also, the document is just so clean, and I appreciate you so much, Joan. You're a gem. We are so lucky to have you.
I want her to take me to the woods.
Yeah, take us all to the woods.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
I think I'm hosting a radio show.
I know it is. Well, it kind of is.
I can't hear anyone. Okay.
All right. So I will go ahead and I can talk a little bit to the Eastern region. Again, I think I know that when Wendy had said that for the most part where we were currently, we're fairly well staffed, but I will throw out there again, similar to Southern and Central, that we would love to have extra volunteers and to, again, be able to double up into some of the schools. So currently, I actually am a school garden mentor for Thompson Middle School, and I would love to have somebody work with me that I could introduce to the school folks and help them get their garden, keep their garden going as they do. That's actually the picture that's behind me is my little Thompson Middle School garden. On the one side, you can see that we have, let me see if I can even do it. Oh, I can. Okay. On this side is the school. On this side is a church, big church buildings. And we were told we couldn't grow anything there. So we do, and would love to have another school garden mentor to help out with that. And then I know we have multiple school gardens coming on board, or that are at least applying to come on board. So we would have openings for those as well. Oh, there she does need one at Nyack, Swomes, Barrington, Gutierrez, Tiverton Library. And a lot of these, as a matter of fact, I know the Barrington schools have an SGM. So those of you who really want to work with somebody who is a little bit more experienced and wants to be, wants to be able to learn more. If you feel maybe a little overwhelmed or not ready to step in, because that's extremely common. A lot of these schools would be available to you to be able to do that. So thank you for that, Francesca. That was very, very helpful. So anyway, that's the Eastern. And again, it's Barrington all the way down to Bristol, Tiverton, Little Compton, and then all of Aquidneck Island is what Eastern is. Northern region. So the Northern region is fairly small. They've had some schools drop out, but they actually have, I think, 3 new schools in the Northern region have applied to come on board. And I also know with, again, some of the schools that they have, again, it wouldn't be bad to have a second school garden. One place in particular, you did get a note from them, didn't you, Francesca? Can you pop that up? I do know one. We have a special school up in the Northern region. It's called Harmony Hill. It is actually a residential boys school for kids that are in trouble. And so they go to this residential school. The unique thing about it is it's actually really neat. The gym teacher who is running their garden program, they have a greenhouse, they have garden beds, and he runs it basically by himself, but he doesn't have garden knowledge. And so he really needs somebody to help him plant this here, plant this way, do this. He just needs somebody to help him with that garden knowledge, because it is a consultant basis, because it's actually, you don't actually go to Harmony Hill. They have restricted visitation for obvious reasons. It's not that you can't visit out there. You could probably, he could arrange for you to be on site at a certain point at time so that you can see what you're dealing with. But for the most part, it's all online. And it would need a vegetable garden, somebody who's got vegetable knowledge, because that's what they do. The really fun thing about Harmony is they run year round, and the kids do the work. So he, as the teacher, just needs the knowledge to help get that done. It's just a really interesting. And I've talked to that school in particular, and I just know very, very excited about that one. And we need to get somebody on board there. One other one is Orlo School. They came on board at the very beginning of COVID, and then we shut down. And we have yet to be able to replace an SGM there. So that's another one. That's a weird one, because if you look at our Master Gardener regions, East Providence is included in the Northern region. It seems a little out of the way there, but that's just where it is. It doesn't make any difference. Just know that it's an East Providence school. So if you're in that general region or area, You could certainly be part of the Northern Region schools. It doesn't make a difference. So trying to think what else we've got. So all the other ones she's got, as you can see, plenty of openings of people. I will say some of those, I know they don't have established SGMs in them. So if you're not afraid to take on a school with the help of your regional managers and myself, then by all means, please don't feel like you can't jump right in, because it can be done if you want to. So don't let that worry you. Questions from anybody else? Anybody else got questions about joining onto the schools?
And also just kind of like to clarify the process, this will be clear once we get to the survey at the end, like you do not have to request, a specific school. There are questions about like, what region, makes sense for you, what, like, are you interested in pollinator garden, veggie garden? So, if you have a school that you want to work with, or a couple schools that sounded interesting, great. You can list those. If you've already been set up with a school, or you already work with one of these schools, great. And then if you are super open, that's also great. So that's kind of the nice thing about this program, is that, if you have a pre-existing relationship or interest, that's welcome. And then if you are just wanting to do this work and are open to any sort of school, then that's great.
Yeah, so the easiest way is, if you know where you want to be, is to contact that regional manager. If you don't know where you want to be, but you have an idea of the locations that you're interested in, then again, you can either contact me or contact that specific regional manager. If you are open to doing it in different regions and you don't know, again, the starting point is the regional managers of those.
Well, I think, Karen, we're going to do it through, we'll do this survey, and then we'll be able to pass that on to the regional managers.
Thank you, Francesca. And one of the vehicles that we'll use to help you get connected will be the survey. But I just, again, as we mentioned before, you can go between different regions. You can pick one region, you can pick two regions. It's pretty flexible within the program. Alrighty.
Folks have questions, definitely feel free to drop them in the chat. I think we're gonna transition now to questions you've already asked, and we have a good number of them, so buckle in.
Okay.
And feel free to, if you have follow-up questions and or anything like that as we're going, feel free to put those in the chat. This is fairly informal. We can kind of stop and address questions and all that.
All right, so I'm just going to go through a list that we have pulled out of Brightspace and compiled. At the end, if we have time left over and you want something clarified, by all means, or as I'm talking and you have questions, pop them into the chat and I'll have Francesca holler at me and give me the X signal. So one of the questions we had was, do other state Master Gardener programs have school garden mentor programs like this one, or school garden programs that work differently? If there are similar programs, is information and best practices or learning shared across states? So there are some, but it's actually more unique than you might think that Master Gardeners have school garden mentor programs. Our particular program was unique and actually won a state award among the Master Gardening programs throughout the country because it was so unique and put together. We've actually been approached, once or twice that I can think of, from other Master Gardening programs. How does this work? How have you set this up? Because they are interested in learning from us how to set up a new Master Gardening program for schools, using kind of the approach that we use. That's more of a consulting approach versus a project approach, if you're familiar with other Master Gardening programs. So do we get together and share best practices? Not as much, again, just because it's not as common. What we do is in Rhode Island and among other entities, kind of like similar to this farm to school programs, we work with other programs and others that do foster school gardens and school garden programs and go to conferences and share ideas. as far as best practices. So that's kind of how that goes. Another question we had was, do we have meetings with other SGMs periodically to discuss school gardens and learn what other schools are doing? Yes, so as much as we can. Primarily, I try to have an all school garden mentor meeting. It's hard when we get us all together because it's pretty big. But one of the things we try to do is do it on a regional basis. And I also mentioned the one that Susan does, Susan Garlick does in Providence, as also being a really good place to go to, get some of that good ideas and working across best practices amongst the schools that we have within the state. And so that's usually what we do. Central Region's pretty good at doing regional meetings. Some of our others are a little bit less regular, but always, you can always reach back up to myself or to your regional manager to find out what you need or to get contacts for other school garden mentors. Is there an opportunity to support schools from a distance? If so, what is the best way to get connected? I mentioned the one school that we have, Harmony Hill, but yeah, I mean, depending on the schools and what they need, a lot of the schoolwork can be done at a distance. And again, that's the kind of the nice thing about being in a team setting or in a consulting setting, because that consulting can get done a lot of different ways. So the way to get started to doing that would, again, be approaching either the regional managers in the school or the area that you're interested in, or if you're going from a distance, it might not matter. So maybe the type of school that you're interested in, and let them know, or let myself know. And you could do that through the, help me, Francesca, the survey that we have going on at the end of our presentation here. Can you discuss a bit of the larger political factors involved when it comes to school gardens and city and state support? There seems to be a huge gap allowing schools and the URI master gardeners to really make gardens successful, fully operational and sustainable. I know, for instance, the 60 to 50 initiative addresses a regional aspect of food management, but is there or has there been legislation to support making school gardens a more permanent feature throughout the state? I wish. Yes, I wish. Unfortunately, no, we don't have, we really haven't had much legislation, or even haven't introduced that I'm aware of, to make it a more permanent feature throughout the state. I definitely believe we've looked into and have worked with other organizations like the Farm to School Collaborative to bring in bigger state partners, again, to make it consistent, to make it a consistent part. Like if we could make it a consistent part of curriculum, then obviously that would put an emphasis on it, and therefore the schools would have it, make it easier on the schools and the teachers and the other folks who want it to be emphasized to make it work. I think one of the ways we can do this in Rhode Island on a small scale or on a more local scale, because that's how we're really organized within the state, is to approach, if you're interested in this, start approaching your superintendents of your local school boards and getting them on board, because once you do that, you can get the whole of the K through 12 on board. And if it comes down from the superintendent, then you can get certain things imposed. But most of what that is getting time, right? Getting time and opportunity, because most of our teachers are driven by the requirements that they have, curriculum requirements that they have within the schools. And then sometimes trying to get the kids out into gardens, it's just those priorities get knocked down. The places where you see it work really well are the schools that actually integrate that into their curriculum and make it important. And that usually comes from the top. So it usually comes from your principal, You can have teachers that are really involved, but it helps so much to have administrative support for that. I'm not sure that I really answered that question very well. Francesca, did you have anything to add there?
I sent a few organizations that do, because school gardens tend to fall under a broader discourse of farm to school, which also includes local food to cafeteria type things, sometimes as integrating with school gardens, sometimes it's different. And then farm to school also focuses a lot on just like cafeteria procurement and trying to localize and regionalize those supply chains. So those organizations, National Farm to School Network, RI Farm to School Network, and Northeast Farm to School Collaborative all work kind of across those areas. But Northeast Farm to School Collaborative in particular has an annual institute for school garden teams, or for school teams interested in implementing farm to school, often involving school gardens. So those are all great resources to follow, and they all also do different policy advocacy. I was also just doing some quick searching, following up on Karen and I talking about this question earlier, that RIDE, RA Department of Education, kind of touches on farm to school every now and again. I think a lot of teachers that you'll work with will tell you that RIDE is not their favorite, and that their approach isn't necessarily their favorite. And right now it seems like farm to school is kind of under their nutrition purview, which is less integrated with curriculum, like Karen was saying. And then I also just remembered that Providence did just publish this farm to school action plan last year. And obviously Providence is under the state takeover, the school district. So I'm sure that's affecting the plan different ways, but that at least at a city level is kind of a promising example of some of this starting to become a little more policy based.
Thank you. All right, another question. So at this point, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, anxious about dealing with PTOs, teachers, principals, food safety issues, COVID regulations, and the list goes on, of course. Are there opportunities to learn to do this work well by assisting an experienced SGM? And what standards are we expected to meet when it comes to food safety, COVID, and other regulations and policies? So the simple answer is for COVID regulations is to follow the school. So whatever the school, we have URI will have them, and they're usually very clear. Either they'll come out in the dirt, they're going to get sent to you in an email, all of those things. So whatever our policies are for URI, we have to follow. But when it comes to our partners, whether it's a garden, whether it's a project garden, or whether it's our schools, we follow our hosts. So with the schools, it's really important to follow whatever their policies are. So some schools are still continuing to kind of keep their kids in small pods where they have a small cohort and they don't, they kind of keep them all seated that way so that if they have an issue, that only that small group is affected and not the whole school or the school as a whole. So I would recommend that you find out what that is at your local school and follow their rules. So personally, we were doing some of the garden visits. If we were at one of the younger schools, like a K through 8, really any of the schools, if the kids were present, I just masked. And that's for me, whether the school tells me I have to or not, it's just, that's what I do. So you can always take a step more restrictive if you know what I'm saying with COVID. As far as going into schools, maybe you're not comfortable doing that because so many of our younger students are unable to be vaccinated. That's okay too. We do have, you can consult, you can be a school garden mentor and not visit the schools, or not visit the schools when the kids are there. So either those are also options. It doesn't negate the knowledge or the desire you have to help these school gardens succeed just because you can't be there in person. So for the COVID factor. As far as some of the other issues or other concerns we might have, PTOs, teachers, principals, food safety. I'll tell you what I do in my own school with food safety. I have a talk with the teachers. I let them know, this is kind of what we need. We need a hand washing station. We need this. Will they do it? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but they're the teachers and that's the school and that's their choice, in my opinion. So I give them the information that they need to have, and then they can use it as they choose. Because the schools themselves aren't going to have necessarily food safety handling issues. Where you will find them, however, is where some of our schools, we're able to use our school garden produce in the school cafeterias. The way that works is it gets sent through, say, Chartwell's or whoever the supplier is. They have to arrange to have your produce through their supplier, and that's how they get their liability coverage for the food and the safe handling. They're going to wash it and do all this stuff that needs to be done before they cut it up and serve it to the kids. I have a lot of teachers, and there are a lot of schools that will harvest right out of their gardens, and the kids will, wash it up and take it. If they've got a place where they can cook or prepare or eat, they do that. Do we follow the DEM, handling? No, but we follow good handling practices, right? They're washing their vegetables, they're doing that sort of thing. So it's more being common sense than it is following regulations to a T. Even within our project gardens, for instance, we have multiple project gardens who raise food and donate them to local food banks and food pantries. We follow just basic good handling, but we only have one project, and it's the East Farm Demo Garden that actually follows all of the they're certified DEM food safe. And do you know, in order to do that, only people who are certified and qualified can even walk into their garden. So that would make it almost impossible for a school garden to exist, or for kids to even taste things out of their gardens. So when you think about the regulations, think more along the lines of being common sense and being safe, and making sure that you can educate your teachers and parents and kids what is safe food handling or harvesting in their gardens, what that looks like. And it pretty much boils down to washing your hands and washing your food. It's not as hard as it might seem. And again, it is absolutely possible to work with an experienced school garden mentor. And if that's what you really want to do, and you want to make sure you do that, that's the conversation to have, certainly with your school garden mentor, because she can really help you and place you with a good person to do that. Now, as far as PTOs, teachers, and principals, they are your people. Those are the people you'll need to get in contact with and develop good relationships with, and encourage and cheerlead, and sometimes kind of let them know listen, this is what your garden, these are the things you have to think about for your garden. And if this is what your goal is, I can help you implement it. These are the things you're going to need to do. I found, because I work with a middle school, I don't have children in Newport Public Schools. So I don't have an in, I'm not part of the PTO. So my teachers tend to be my front line. I depend on them to, like, I can say, we need to pull in parents and volunteers, and I'll come talk to your PTO, but I need that teacher to kind of, get me into the PTO, so to speak, in order to talk, or my principal. It depends on how involved and who you deal with the most. Or if I need to get a message out, if we want to, get all parents or kids or make things known, I, again, depend on the teachers or the administration to do that for me, because I don't have an in. Again, when you don't even have a child in the school, it's a little bit different. So, and I would say those are the people you work with the most. And it doesn't happen overnight. This little garden that we're looking at behind me is one of the oldest gardens in our program, and it reinvents itself every 3 years or every 2 years. It's had the same teacher, and it's why it's continued to go. But if she were to step aside, it would require a complete rebuild. And that's after me working with it for 3 years and trying to get a good garden committee together so that, so there are more people. So we actually have more people, but it's still really run by the one teacher, if that makes any sense. So there's little, you find the little happies and the small steps that you make. When they couldn't grow vegetables, they grew sunflowers, and they were there when the kids came back. And it was great and it was awesome. So, you just figure out a new way to do things. Is there an expectation that SGMs will work to bring new school gardens on board? Not necessarily. I mean, unless somebody approaches you and says, hey, you're a school garden mentor. I have this school and I want to get us a school garden mentor. You would just either let them know how to do that or give them my email or the whoever the state coordinator is, or Francesca. And we would be able to send them to the appropriate person, or give them the appropriate information they needed to become on board. But no, you don't need to recruit schools at all. As a matter of fact, I mean, we are somewhat limited in the number of schools we can serve at any one time. I mean, we're about 75-ish. And I have found as a state coordinator, we're kind of maxed out. Some schools will stop and some schools will come in, but I don't have the way we're organized currently. And we kind of talked about, making it statewide. If it were, that would be great. Then they wouldn't really need master gardeners to run the school garden program, because as a small volunteer organization, we can't really accommodate the whole state currently. Let's see. Is there an end of school year form that the SGMs fill out to document what has been done over the past year, what the plans are for the following year, and what next year's goals are, along with inventory, key names, faculty, parents, and so on? So handoffs are handled more easily. Yes, actually, thank you for asking. We have an end of year report that each SGM, or at least can be an SGM, team of SGMs, file for each school. So each school has an end of year report filed that we ask questions about, and it's, general questions. They're not quite as specific as what's being asked here. It does include what was done over the year, usually what your plans for the future are, but they're usually more in a story form of the story of your garden than it is real specifics. That specific handoff would happen either from SGM to SGM or from SGM to regional manager, and then the regional manager would be able to get you up to speed as the new SGM. So we do have information that goes back and forth, but we do have a year-end report that is filed. It usually is done in October. We're running behind because most of our schools have not been running. So we've modified that over the last couple of COVID school years. But be on the lookout for that. That is actually one of the one things that we say, if you want to be an SGM, the one thing you got to do is fill out your report. Let's see what else. How many hours are typically required of an SGM in a school year? And I would say that I don't have a very good answer at all. It is what you want it to be, and it is what the school needs, if that makes any sense. When I had more time, before I was working more full time, I was able to go down to the school, and I would go down regularly once a week at a certain time to meet the teacher and work with some of the kids and be in the garden. Over the course of time, I'm much more of a consultant at this point. And so I touch in with my teacher. She lets me know what she needs. I say, I can't do X, Y, and Z, but I can do PD and Q. So let's get this going. And here's your this, and here's your seeds, here's your seedlings, here's your curriculum, here's your garden plan. So she can give me I know what they've planted where. And so I can tell them, this is how you want to plant these things in your garden beds next year, and do that kind of thing. So it does flex over the course of time. I might have done, oh goodness, I probably could have done 50 hours the first year I was working with the school garden, and I probably do a lot closer to over the course of the school year, probably closer to 10, 20, 10 to 15, depending on what's going on and what they need me to do down at the school. But with COVID, again, it's contracted considerably, mostly because we want to limit our contact with the kids. Due to scheduling conflicts and cancellation, I was not able to attend a school garden. Will any school visits be recorded? We didn't. What you can do, though, is as you're getting on board, if you know which region you want to work with, ask one of your other SGMs, ask your regional manager. We can get you in a school garden. It shouldn't be too terribly difficult. I know most of our school garden mentors are really happy to show off their gardens. So I would start with your regional manager and say, hey, is there a way I can maybe do that? How would you recommend going about starting a seed library at one of the school gardens so people can take advantage of growing at home? Do schools have these? I don't know of any school that has a really organized, oh, we have a seed library. I do know a lot of schools, because they collect seed as part of the curriculum. It's one of the things they'll do with the kids, and they do label those and pass those out to students. They do it a lot in the fall when you have, when the school starts and does their open houses for the new school year in the fall. We've got a couple of school gardens that set up tables in the for that open house, so they get new parental interest or revive some parental interest, and they usually give away seeds, either free seeds that they've got left over from the free seed program or seeds that they've collected. But I don't know, and I know so many schools that use the seeds, but I don't know of anybody that specifically has compiled a seed library. But many of our gardens, many of our gardens share seeds or seedlings both with their families. I would say that's incredibly common. Okay, what else do we have going on here? Let's see. What is the philosophy of URI and the School Garden Mentor Program regarding requests to local businesses for donations, or preferably, from my experience, asking for wholesale or landscape cost of materials? Two different things. Specifically, can we as master gardeners ask for donations? We can, but you have to realize, who are you asking donations on behalf of? Are you asking donations on behalf of URI? If you are, then you have to follow URI rules or URI MG rules. And we do that, for instance, with just did the Gardening with the Masters tour. The sponsors of those were solicited directly by volunteers in order to support the programming and the Gardening with the Masters. So we do that. But for school gardens, you're really asking on behalf of the school. So the policies you would follow would be the school policies on asking for. That's actually how I got involved with Thompson Middle School, as my teacher came up to our greenhouse. And at the time I was actually doing the retail greenhouse, and she asked for, do you have any plants you could possibly give to my school for our school garden? And I went through all my stuff, and I was like, take this, is this enough? I've got more, I might have some compost. Do you want compost? Do you want this? And she says, I'll take whatever you give me. So that's, and I delivered some stuff, and that's how I became her school garden mentor. I was actually registered for core training and hadn't even done core training yet. I was a school garden mentor first. So there's nothing that would prevent you from approaching the businesses for products at discounts or as donations on behalf of your school. But again, I would follow your school's lead. Most of our schools can, get the tax write-off, or, it depends on the business. So you would want to have that to be able to facilitate some of those donations. Just a couple more here. What happens when schools decide to deviate considerably from the original intake questionnaire. And I'm not really sure what you mean by that. The intake questionnaire is usually a lot more of a wish list of a school. Like it might be the big Disney picture of what the school has, of what their school garden is going to be. And then we come in and, the regional mentors, when they do the intake visit, will go in and actually look at what's possible, what's on the ground, what do they have done, what kind of funds do they have, what kind of funds do they, what kind of fundraising do they have planned, do they have grants in the work? I mean, they're usually able to determine really what can you do. And it's not that the Disney dream can't come alive, it just might take multiple years to do that and a lot of hard work. So what comes in on paper for the school doesn't necessarily mean it will be, that's what it ends up. So the school might come in, say, with vegetable gardens and raised beds and this teacher, and they're going to use it and they do it. And then that teacher leaves and you have these raised beds, but raising vegetables just isn't feasible because the kids aren't around during the summer. The teachers don't want to maintain and or organize and have parents. So what do? You turn it into flowers, plant annuals, plant perennials, plant strawberries, or blueberries, or things that are going to come back, and herbs, right? That are all perennial, that are edible, but come back year after year after year. So that isn't what it looked like on its intake. So they've changed. And we just kind of change, we just help them change with it because it's a different, right? They need different kind of consulting for a vegetable garden than they do for a perennial garden. So we just change with them. So deviations are to be expected, I would say. Considerable deviations, I'm not sure what that means. If considerable deviations means they no longer want to be a integral part and have ownership of their school garden, and they're expecting that the URI Master Gardening Program and their school garden mentor is now going to take care of, manage and run and weed and plant and basically be the gardener, the school's personal gardener. That's a problem because that's not what we do as a program. So I would say changes are always happening. That's always, I mean, that's school gardening. Expect it, embrace it, and go with the flow. If it's a big change and like it's just not, they're asking or wanting us to do things that we can't do, that's just when you have a discussion. And the discussion might be come to me, come to Francesca, and we, you know what I mean? We can kind of get our administration involved, if that makes sense. Excellent. Did I have a different question with that one?
You've got one more question. I realized I could have asked these to you and then you responded to them, so you didn't have to talk for as long as you will.
It's okay.
So I'll take the next part so that you can you don't have to talk so much. I'll ask you the last one. Are SGMs covered under our own master gardener insurance or the schools while working in the garden?
So every year, those of you who are new interns, you may remember signing a volunteer form when you started core training. Every year after this, you will have to renew that volunteer form and pay a I think it's a $30 volunteer fee. And that covers you under URI's insurance. So when you are on school property as a URI master gardener, you are covered or on any project for URI, you are covered. And that's what that agreement does. So if you read the agreement in full, it talks about our liability insurance that you have. So that was an easy one.
We like to end on an easy one. Thank you, Karen, as you all can see, Karen is just this wealth of knowledge about so many things, and we are so lucky to have her doing this work and have been doing this work for the past couple of years. If there are any kind of follow-up questions on any of that, feel free to drop them in the chat. Just at 8 o'clock, I'm going to keep us moving. And this last portion we're thinking is going to take about 10 minutes, just as you're estimating your time. So mean, first of all, thank you all again for participating in this course, for being here, for all of your amazing questions, for helping me figure out Brightspace when it was the first time I was using it. Thank you. Thank you. We're so lucky to have you as part of this program and as part of the Master Gardeners in general. The timeline is that we're trying to schedule a meeting with the regional managers this month. And so hopefully can have everybody assigned to schools by the end of October is kind of the goal. You know, that might end up being a little ambitious, but we're going to do our best. And, you know, if you have questions about what's going on, always feel free to email Karen, email myself. You know, we're here to make you feel communicated with and in the loop. Definitely don't want you to feel like you did all of this and then nothing happened. If you are still working on the course, no worries. I'm going to double check this week that it's not like automatically going to shut down or something. So if that does happen, have no fear. I'll get it back up and running somehow. If you are still working on the learning scenarios, I think just send Karen an email once you submit them so that she knows to go look at Brightspace and provide some feedback. I think that's probably going to be easier than Karen having to.
I've been checking, and I get notifications, but usually on the due date. So if they come in after the due date, I don't necessarily get the notifications.
Yeah.
I haven't figured out how to turn it on.
Yeah. And I think after a certain point, I think Karen will probably move on from providing feedback. So if you can get those in, in the next week.
Let's do it this way. If you want feedback, get it in by the end of the month. You have 2 days.
There you go.
and then after that, you'll just have to be, you know, it's all good. Actually, the feedback, like I said, the feedback's been great. So I'm thrilled to death with the effort that y'all have put into that. So.
And of course, you know, if any questions come up as you're doing those, always feel free to reach out. That also gets to like, what is passing this course? Passing this course is just completing this course. So I'm using, just because you might get weird notifications, I don't know, Brightspace. I have like a grade book that I'm basically grading all of the assignments out of 1 point. And then when someone does the assignment, they get a point. Or like the BCI paperwork, I have like written grades in, so I know people are submitting them different ways. So just do everything and then you will pass the course. We do require you to have completed all of the course content and assignments in order to be placed at a school. And so, you know, you want to get that done sooner rather than later. And of course, you know, if it became too much for you this year, you know, there's always next year. I know Karen does sometimes onboarding of folks in the middle of the year, you know, we're here, talk to us. But in terms of just kind of being part of this batch of people moving on to the next step, really try to get it done in the next few days, you know, by the end of the week. And as motivation, we do have something called a school garden mentor pin. And so master gardeners who complete this training course and then log 20 hours as an SGM get a whole pin for it. And you get invited to our recognition ceremony, which is happening in a couple of weekends this year's. You get one of those pins to go with your name tag and kind of, you know, keep that community and energy going.
Real quick, those SGM pins and your time that you've spent doing this course, if you're a new intern, that is all volunteer hours. So when you go to enter that into Volgistics, go in and the Sortie School Garden program, and that's where you'll enter it. If you are already a master gardener and in other words, you are not the class of 2021, then it counts as continuing education hours. So
what if you're someone like I'm going to call her out, Laura Lapata, who is class of 2021 but completed her 50th hour already just last week.
Congratulations. You still get the 2021 year by, and all of your hours this year are regular hours that count towards your pins versus continuing ed hours.
I don't know if you had that question, Laura, but I asked it for you just in case. BCI paperwork. I only received 2 handed to me at the in-person site visits. I know at that one visit where I got a couple, everyone has said, I've given it to Mimi or I've mailed it to Mail Center. All of those are great ways to submit it. You have to submit it. You will not be allowed to go volunteer at a school if you have not submitted your BCI paperwork. Instructions for it are in Brightspace. You do need to get it notarized. There's a whole resource of different places you can go. Most town halls, a lot of public libraries have them, plus a lot of UPS stores have it. I know it's a little bit of an annoying thing, especially if it's during business hours. Libraries might have someone in on the weekend, but we do need that from you. I'm going to ask you if you can get those in by October 8th, Friday, October 8th. Mimi kind of waits until she has a big batch of them to go through the processing, because we are then, submitting these to the state, and then doing the background check on your behalf. So it is, some administrative work that we're happy to do on your behalf, but it's much easier to do it in batch. So please have those to us by Friday, October 8th. And Susan Loomis offers that banks also often notarize. And Nicole, I'm going to ask your question out loud because I imagine Karen has the answer, or maybe she doesn't, and then I'll ask Vanessa. Completed the 2020 Master Gardener training, but had trouble getting the 50 hours last year with COVID. So with this for 2020 folks, do you know if this would be under volunteer or continuing ed?
Well, for last year and this year, we relaxed those requirements because we couldn't volunteer. This year, I think the only thing you need to do is 5 continuing education hours. So done, check. You're good.
Nicole, if that doesn't answer your question, or if I misunderstood the question, just shoot me an email, and I can check in with Vanessa. And same goes to, I know the last couple of years have been weird, and like we're grouping 2020 and 2021 together a lot. So, if you have any
what
questions.
they did, so 2020 last year, if you got out, the only requirements for Master Gardeners to stay active was basically continuing education hours, because that was what we were doing mostly. It was Zooming, right? It was that's how we were staying active. That's how we were trying to get all 2020 classes, again, to stay active, because we didn't have places for you to volunteer in person. So you should be perfectly good. And then go ahead and enter.
I guess the question, Karen, so if
the question is it PIN hours or continuing ed hours? That's going to be a Vanessa question.
Vanessa question.
I think.
Okay. So
yeah.
If you, Nicole,
I'm inclined to say PIN hours because you're 2020. But
and I think that's probably the answer. But
I
Nicole,
do too.
if you could go ahead and just email me that, then I will double check with Vanessa for you. And probably you're not the only one with that question about a lot of things. So
it's a good question.
Thank you. So BCI paperwork, instructions are in Brightspace. Okay, and then before we get to the questionnaire, Karen and I just had a couple events that we thought might be of interest to folks that we wanted to share that are upcoming. So the first one is the national, sorry, I sent that just to Nicole. Sorry, Nicole. The first one is the National Farm to School Network is having an interesting seeming discussion on shifting towards the next generation. Seems to be especially focused on elevating BIPOC youth and BIPOC voices. So that's Black and Indigenous people of color in farm to school work, which includes school gardens. So that might be of interest. I'm checking in with Vanessa whether it's relevant enough that it could be considered a continuing ed hour. So if you see it pop up in the dirt.
I think so, because I also asked if I could share it with all school garden mentors, and she said yes. So I'm sure that would count as continuing ed hours. Perfect. Again,
and it will probably be in the dirt if so. So yeah, I'm going to be going to that. And then Master Gardeners are partnering with Providence Public Library in 2 events. So one of them is on winter sowing and the other one is on seed saving. You'll see them promoted on cooperative extension stuff. They're going to be in the dirt, all of that, but I wanted to share that as well.
I'm sorry, I'm going to push the winter sowing one, and I'll tell you why. It's really great for schools. A low cost way to get the perennials and ornamentals, because those are 2 of the things that are really, they're a little bit harder, a little bit more expensive to source for schools that want to do native gardens or even just perennial gardens. And it's a winter sowing project. So it's a project that you can do with the kids now Not really now, but as it gets a little bit colder in the middle of the winter, but something that'll keep them interested in the garden all the way through. And I will tell you that I tried my own little experiment with it after attending a winter sowing thing last winter that I was excited about. And yes, you can do vegetables. So if you have a vegetable garden and you want to start kale and it's lettuce or any of those other things, you can winter sow those as well. But let me tell you, you can winter sow tomatoes, peppers, and all of those other things. You won't get big starts like what you would get out of a greenhouse, right? But you will get hardy stock that you can then put right out into your garden. You don't have to hard them off. It's a very simple thing, and just let them grow from that seed all the way up. Again, just something that's kind of fun to do with kids. So that's my plug for that one.
Thanks, Karen. All right, home stretch. I'm asking us to do this live to make sure that everyone does it, and also so that if people have questions that we can ask those and get them done. If you have to run, this will be in Brightspace, but we have the fabled survey / questionnaire. So this is what we were talking about. So this has some different questions to get at your interest, your availability, all that sort of information. I know some people in this course and certainly on the Zoom are already SGMs. So if you're already an SGM, have an assignment, keep on plugging away. You know the drill. But for folks who need an assignment or who may have communicated with the regional manager about an assignment, but this is still kind of your training to become an SGM, still do fill this out and just kind of, there's a comment box where you'll be able to say, I've already talked to Joan and this is already the school I'm going to be at. So if everyone could take some time to do that now, what I won't ask you to stay to do, but we would love for you to do by Monday, October 11th, is complete a feedback survey for the course. I think it should take about 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on, how many extra comments you want to write. Would really appreciate, even if you are at this session. I don't think folks who kind of dropped off the course are at this session, but if you dropped off the course, that's okay. We still want to hear from you and understand why you dropped off the course. So we're just trying to gather information, see how we can make this better next year. And a lot of this year was a real experiment in this. And so we want to know how that was from your end. So school placement questionnaire, asking you to do now. Feedback survey, you can bookmark for another time, but please do it by the 11th.
Please, and if you don't mind letting us know what we can do better, that would be super helpful. It's the first time we've run asynchronous, and it's the first time we were able to squeeze in garden visits. So it'd be really awesome to know how that worked for everybody, or again, how could we have made it work better?
Sally, you have highlighted the issue that Google has been plaguing me with for the past 5 months, and that I have all of the settings such that you shouldn't have to log into Google. And yet it is asking me to log into Google. Try it in a different browser, because I did just try opening it in like an incognito window and it did open. So try the survey in a different browser. And if that still doesn't work for you and you don't have a Google account, I can email it to you. So give that a try. Let me know.